Divya is an eco warrior and an environmentalist. She's a Hyderabadi at heart and is now known as the Global Abadi because she has traveled to all 7 continents so far and has lived in 6 countries across 3 continents. She's currently based between Germany and Hyderabad. At the age of 23, she became the youngest female Indian civilian on record to step onto Antarctica in 2009. She has been skydiving, scuba diving, and loves dancing. Divya doesn't consider herself as a traveler, and she says there is no bucket list as such. She has only a deep passion for raising awareness about preserving our planet and how to love nature better with simple daily actions in our lifestyle. Hello and welcome to another episode of Let's Decode. Today we have with us Divya Nawale, Climate Policy Consultant at the United Nations. Divya is a Pakka Hyderabadi, but she lives all across the globe. Divya, welcome and thank you so much for coming on board.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here today.
Thank you. So, Divya, you've been somebody who's traveled across all the continents. You work with the United Nations. You are like a global ambassador for environment, climate change. Who's Divya?
So it starts with what you said. I'm a Pakka Hyderabadi, but also my own school friends came up with a term which said Global Abadi.
Global Abadi,
which is because I've traveled to all 7 continents by a very young age, in fact, and I've lived across the world. I think Germany is my 5th country outside India to now live in. But who I am really is actually that young girl who basically wanted to kind of look at the world with eyes full of wonder, and essentially say that this is a beautiful planet and we must do something to save it. The story is that one of my school projects that I've saved even now was a Hindi project called Pradushan Ki Samasya.
Okay.
So it was always there. I think I was always an environmentalist at heart. I was always somebody who was very socially conscientious about, how we impact the world and how the world is a part of us. And, I think more than anything, my travels around the world has taught me that humanity is just one big family. So
it is. In fact, I'll tell you what why I was curious about all this. Last time when I met you, where you came to Align and we did that program and everything, I was amazed to see the kind of work that goes into climate, saving the environment and the planet and all of it. Because, see, we hear these words, sustainability, we hear climate consciousness and everything. But on a day-to-day basis, I don't think many of us are actually aware of it. We would like to be, but definitely not there to an extent where it is actually required to save whatever that we have to save now. So, but then I saw that, you started off your journey very, very young. So can you tell us what made you passionate about this?
What made me passionate? So I think I'm gonna have to go back a little bit and talk about how several pieces of my life came together. And essentially, I feel like my journey has been just a series of manifestations. So, one of the things that happened to me as a young kid was that I was very compassionate always. For example, just, I used to, spend the summers. I actually, for 2 years, my parents moved to Warangal because my mom used to work in Andhra Bank. So we had to move around a little bit. And I remember when we were in Kazipet, Warangal area, and there was a Murmura guy who used to come every day in the summer, and every day I would tell my mom, give him 2 rupees. He came in such hot sun. I want him to, feel. So was it at
Eat Murmura or to give him the money?
Give him the money. It was always about, how can I help people and how can I really make someone's day better? And I think that I carried throughout me even as a kid. And when I was 8 years old, I tried to save a squirrel which was dying and I couldn't. And I went home and I cried a lot. And from that day onwards, I became, very conscious about the fact that, animals get, can feel pain and get hurt just like us. And so from there also I started, telling my parents that maybe eating meat is not a good idea and, it doesn't feel right to me. And then at around 16, 17, I said, I've given up meat.
By choice.
By choice. And it was not like, somebody knew about climate, or, like I used to talk about PETA way before, PETA posters used to come out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even my second year, I studied at BITS Pilani, and even my second year course where I had to do public speaking, I chose the topic to be about animal cruelty. So I was, a lot of people even now back then used to say that I was the odd one in college or school. But being that odd one just meant that, I looked at the world a little differently. And I think in a way, just what happened to me, especially through, the stories I read and the movies I saw manifested. So I'll go a little bit deeper into that. So for example, I didn't dream to go to Antarctica when I was 23. I did not dream to be like the youngest civilian Indian woman at that point in time.
Actually get there.
To actually step onto the continent. And also, I don't think it was like a goal or a bucket list.
Yeah.
It started with, if you, look back, like connect the dots, as Steve Jobs says. It started from when one of my mom's friends, she went to Russia and got back these Russian folktale books, which was about the tundra regions, where about like people living in these igloos and tents and, talking about how they are in extreme conditions. So I think there was curiosity about how life is there in these polar regions in general. And then I saw a bunch of movies about polar regions, but the most impactful one was a Paul Walker movie called 8 Below. And it's about these huskies who get stuck in Antarctica. I probably watched that movie at least 7-8 times when I was in university, and I used to cry every time. And I think there was something there that, emotionally, it pulled me to that place somehow. And so, it was always the idea that, okay, maybe I could do something in polar regions. But being a middle-class kid in Hyderabad, of all places, I had never seen snow before. My parents used to take us to the Himalayas every time in the summer. So we used to go to Shimla, Vaishno Devi, but I never saw snow.
Melted snow.
Exactly.
Snow with that mud.
Yes, exactly. Slushy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but then somehow, in my dreams or even in just my, visualizations, I would imagine myself in those polar regions. And then when I was 22 years old, I came across this expedition online because I was actually writing about the Earth Hour. And that also comes from the fact that, I was getting more conscious about climate. I watched Al Gore's movie, An Inconvenient Truth. That's something I'll share later, by the way, because I've shared stage with Al Gore.
That's nice. Huh?
But coming back, the idea that, I imagined myself there, and somehow I saw this expedition online. So I filled the form and sent it. And I got a response back saying, oh, we've never had an Indian girl apply, and you're very young. You just graduated recently. So I'd love to learn more about you. So then began a series of emails between me and the expedition director, and then somehow Robert Swan, who's actually the founder of 2041 Antarctica, he reached out to me saying, because I think I sent a picture to be put somewhere in their, coming expedition book or something. And then he said, you know what? I feel that you are very authentic. And I believe that, I could bring you to the expedition, through a scholarship. And
Interesting.
So basically, Robert Swan fundraised for me to actually go on an expedition to Antarctica.
And how old were you then?
I was 22 then. When I went to the expedition itself, I was 23. And it was unbelievable. I mean, also, I think I went through, hoops and hoops of
But you had this clarity of, doing your own research, getting it, sending out an email to them and everything. And you're not talking about these times, right?
You're not talking. Facebook was already a thing, but, it wasn't like, I could just get on in Instagram and ask.
I don't even know has authentic or not.
No, it could have been a very sketchy human trafficking route.
Exactly. Coming from a Pakka Hyderabadi family.
Yeah.
How did your parents react to all this?
So I think my mom and dad are very supportive. I mean, obviously, they wanted me to excel. I studied in BITS Pilani, and I think they believed me in the sense that, they knew that I was brave enough to, travel by myself. I used to travel from Pilani all the way back home in train sometimes at 19 years of age. And I had taken flights also by that time alone in early 20s. So I think they were kind of in a space where she was like, what was she trying to do? But there was never a sense of oh my God, you can't go. I think my parents are also very brave. In fact, I remember my mom telling the story about her own manager at office, and he was like, how are you able to let your daughter go? Like, where are you getting this courage?
Yeah, fine. The people around are it.
Correct. They're putting in the, like doubts and everything. And my mom jokes sometimes that every day I was praying for you, like, because I didn't know. And interestingly, I even called her all the way from Antarctica once because we were very lucky. We had like a prince from one of the, regions of UAE who was on the ship with us, and he had a satellite phone. And, I called my mom of all people. And I think I would say that was easily one of the happiest moments of her life that, I can't believe my daughter is calling me from Antarctica, right? So I think in a way they wanted to trust the process that I was going through and never hold me back. And same thing today. I've been able to travel so much, live across, different parts of the world. I've lived in 3 continents at this point. And even more than that, I think it's also the belief that you want your child to, be the wing when we need the wings, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of love, and, there's a lot of over concern, but it's also like, okay, I will trust you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, because I really like the way you put it out. You said your life is more of manifesting all those little things that you said.
Yeah.
And so beautifully where you said, see, maybe looking forward, you were just that little girl with those big dreams. But looking backwards, you have achieved those things where you've become the first civilian to get there and everything. The reason why I'm saying this is we do not usually start off to be something.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even know. And that too, when you started off, I don't think you had a reference.
I didn't actually, only when I came back, and there were a lot of like newspaper articles written about me. And we kind of established that I was the youngest Indian woman until that
You
point.
became a reference to somebody else.
Correct. And you will not believe it. The friendships I built because of those newspaper articles, so many people reached out to me, and a lot of those people are still connected to me. They still, like reach out to me and consider like a part of the family that, you inspired us to go. You were one of the people who really showed us that it's possible, right? And not just possible, but combine a purpose with it. Passion and purpose, when they align, I think that's the magic, right?
And when you talk about authenticity, Divya, I think I should mention that here. I know you're a vegan, right? Just now when we were just about to have coffee, the regular milk was brought to you.
Yeah.
And I saw that you did not make you didn't even glitch about it. You said the food wastage is much more severe issue than me having a vegan coffee. And you've just very quietly, you had this regular coffee. So that shows the kind of commitment that you have to actually uphold whatever the climate factor that you talk about and everything. When people talk about sustainability, Divya, these days I see that it has become a fashion statement. Sustainability is used and people want to be sustainable, not knowing what sustainability really means.
Correct.
And what I saw of you just now, that's an absolute example of sustainability. What is sustainability?
I think sustainability is, the UN definition itself says that, you're using your resources today without harming or impacting the way that it is the availability of those resources to the future generations, right? So there's a lot of science behind it, of course, but I think sustainability on a daily basis is just about how can you actually be sustaining yourself in the most minimal way possible. Are you, again, like I don't drive an electric car yet. And people ask me why. And I said, my car works in perfect condition. Why should I buy a new car?
Exactly.
I'm not going to buy a new car to make a statement.
This is exactly what I love. You're not a vegan to make a statement.
I'm not here to make.
You're not into sustainability to make a statement.
Yes. However, of course, it's important for us to do small basic activities that can help, right? And I think a lot of people these days are struggling to really translate that, the concept into action without realizing that also the system is challenging, right? We need to stop shaming and blaming people for not being able to follow things, but actually hold the system accountable. But then again, I'm not an activist. I used to be an activist, and there was a lot of anger within me. And I think there's also a part of, veganism and compassion that I think people forget about. right? Compassion is mainly what veganism is about.
Yeah.
And, if you cannot treat your fellow human beings properly, then how can you say that, oh, I love this animal more than you, and that's why I'll shame you?
You know how many times
Right.
this thought has come across to me, because I see a lot of vegans shaming the other people.
Yeah.
Because it's not veganism just about food, it's about veganism about your thoughts as well.
Correct. It's about compassion in thoughts and actually acceptance.
Yeah.
You cannot change a system that you have not accepted as of today.
Correct.
And I think when I talk to people, I talk to governments on a daily basis. I talk to people, there have been 60-year-old men who come to me and say, but who wants to invest in renewable energy? Like coal is king, right? Like why would anyone want to do solar or wind? And I'm talking about these are like multi-billion-dollar projects, right? I'm working on those. Like on a daily basis, I work on documents which are like 500 million, 1 billion, right? And for me to compare with a small thing and say that, you know what, for me, actually, I would rather spend my energy sustainable, make my life sustainable in a way that I will do small steps towards it, but I will not shame or blame. I'll rather not spend my energy on something that will
Correct.
upset someone, because nobody has ever really made a difference through anger. And I think this will kind of rile up a few feathers.
It could flare up a few things, but I really love the way you put it out. Activism usually comes out of some anger.
Yes,
Comes out of some non-acceptance. Right?
And it's great that, you feel moved that, things are unfair. There is a lack of justice, right? I do. But also, imagine if your judge itself is going to sit there and say, oh my God, this is horrible. That's why I'm going to make this decision. No, I think humanity is in a space where we can do things with love. Even just now, child development, a lot more positive reinforcement has come into, like, the psychology and everything. You see, a child cannot be, slapped or, hurt and
Even labeled.
oh yeah, or even labeled, right? You cannot do that. Would you ever listen to a bully? You would only be hurt by a bully. So all this anger is nothing but a form of, bullying.
Yes.
And I was bullied in high school.
You put it across so elegantly, because it is very much important for people to understand the difference.
Yeah, I think there is a very little difference between shaming and actually bullying.
Correct.
And I think I would never bully someone. And any vegan trying to say, you know what, I'm going to return this coffee because it's not vegan, you're forgetting food waste is a much bigger problem. It's a giant problem. It says food waste, if it was a country, is the third largest country in terms of carbon emissions.
Right.
So if you understand sustainability, follow the science. Learn the science, implement the science. And it doesn't mean that you have to really, just use bamboo toothbrush, right? But actually look at where you're, really going to make the bigger impact.
And what's the toothpaste that people usually use? The brush gum.
Yeah.
How many of them actually understand that actual waste itself also has, so many different things?
Correct. Now there are dent taps, and I use those.
How many of them understand? They don't.
Yeah. They do one small thing and they think they have changed the world, and which I think is great for a start.
Yeah.
But don't stop there.
Yeah.
Go forward, move forward, see how you can do it in every single way, but do it with compassion.
Not for validation.
Exactly. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, people will remember you for the positive reinforcement you were able to make in their life by saying, hey, this can be better. I have friends who call me, saying, hey, I took my cloth back to the supermarket today and I thought of you. Isn't that beautiful? Imagine if I said to them, oh my God, you're carrying so many plastic bags. Will they remember me in a sweet way? No. So think about it. What impact are you making on the world really? And I don't know if this, I guess you could relate to this, but every thought you make is also a manifestation into the world, right? So what are you adding in terms of thoughts to the universe? Are you adding I'm going to actually create this beautiful world where I can inspire people? Or
if there is friction here, you're anyways putting out that friction out into the energy, into the world.
Exactly.
And it's definitely going to, rub off on the wrong side.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I think, I have one of my Buddhist teachers, Nitya Shanti. I think he has a story where he says that, his laptop got stolen. And the other people around him were like, oh my God, panicking, like, oh my God, where is his laptop? His life's work should be in it, and this and that. And he was the most chill and calm person in the room. And he was like, okay, if it's supposed to find its way back to me, it will. But, maybe somebody else needed that laptop more than me. Maybe my teachings were supposed to reach that person in some form, right? So trust that, I also felt the same way. I think when I lived in London, I think I lost like 3 mobile phones in a year. Lost is wrong word. So they got stolen, right? And for some reason, me and my, I had a Dominican roommate, and, she's from Dominican Republic. And, she and we came up with this whole spiritual theory that those people needed those phones more than us.
In a way, you're kind of calming down.
Yeah, exactly. There's always a reason, there's always a reason.
Because that's a great way to put across, because when it's not in your control, you can't even, label anything there. You don't know what to do. It's gone, it's gone.
If it's gone, it's gone. What you can do is only move forward from there, right? And I think, I'm not saying that it's easy.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that, that should be...
It's a choice that we make every moment.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can choose either to sit down and complain about it, cry about it, or get up and actually use the same time
Exactly.
for a positive thing again.
Exactly. And I think that's what drives me to work every single day. Being in the climate space is very hard. I work specifically in the energy domain where, it is driven by male. And generally, I'm the youngest woman at the table on most of these conversations. I'm probably also the only person of color in most places when having these discussions. And it's always interesting that, they try to undermine you in a very subtle way, saying that, this is what the young people want, but they don't understand the reality. But I think that is where we need to tell them that, hey, we are here to work with you, rather than saying that we want to work against you.
Yeah.
And I think
when you're willing to learn
from their perspective, that why they made those choices at that time. And I think a lot of people don't understand. It's a very simple thing, at that time they wanted to save lives, in the sense that they wanted to make lives easier. Imagine the amount of plastic used in healthcare, right? But if we didn't have these many vaccines, these many, lot of things that happened in different sectors using plastic, really saved a lot of lives, and really kind of helped create the world that we have today. The inventor of plastic himself invented plastic to save trees, because at that time we were cutting down so much trees constantly, and he was scared for the planet. So, plastic was supposed to be a miracle, product at that time. And then we have made it evil with our usage and how we have treated it. So I think a lot of it is about saying that, stepping back and saying that, how can I make this day better on a day-to-day basis? And what is my role in it? And I'm adding joy to it, or am I doing it with anger? That's the only difference.
That's a very interesting perspective, because something which came into existence to help climate is now turned against climate.
Yeah.
Talking about plastic.
Exactly.
So, that means perspectives keep changing. Timelines keep changing. Relevance keeps changing.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and for that matter, I think this was something we were having a conversation before about, and going back to, I was a very socially conscious person, and I always kept, telling my parents, why do beggars on the street exist? What can we do for them and everything? Today, my perspective is different. I wouldn't give money to a beggar, but I'll give them food. I'll give them a drink. I am not kidding, but I've even given out chocolates. Even because I keep chocolates in my car sometimes, and I just give it to them because I feel okay, that's what.
And they don't take it, right? Not willingly.
The kids will take it.
Yeah.
But the older ones be like, what are you giving me? It's I don't need this. But I think what really is I think you should essentially empower yourself with the right information, the right knowledge, and look at what is really helping the world. And if you can get together with a community like that and have those conversations. And I think it's happening in Hyderabad a lot lately. And I think that would be something where you can, learn from each other and grow with each other.
Sensitize more people.
Yeah, but do it with compassion. At the end of the day, I think we are approaching sustainability very with a lot of negativity, and I think that needs to change. And my personal take is that, if you're showing love for nature, remember humans are part of nature.
It does reciprocate, right?
Correct.
It just comes back. And tell me, how did the United Nations role happen at all?
Oh, again, have to connect the dots backwards or retrospect. But I did have a goal to work at the UN. But how it happened is because I did engineering when I was in Pilani. I used to volunteer a lot. I used to teach, kids after school. So the Pilani campus itself, even back then, was like one of the most high-end technology campuses.
Big ones.
Exactly. It's a beautiful campus. You would not believe that there's a desert outside and, there's a village outside. Yeah. But the moment you step outside of the gate, the bus stand is not like even a proper bus stand. You can see kids, poor kids, like, on the street. And so the area was called Junjunu district. And, as a part of the National Service Scheme, I used to volunteer, and we went and did some, like health and nutrition assessments in the villages nearby. We used to do medical camps inside the campus where the construction workers were, building new, library and this and that. So whenever I talk to them, I felt like, they are giving us this beautiful campus, or
They are the ones who are building it, actually.
yeah, they're the ones building us. But what about them? And so I think in a lot of ways, I wanted to work in the social space because I wanted to help them.
So how common or uncommon was it for a BITS Pilani engineer to actually focus on these things?
It was very uncommon. I would say there are a lot of, in fact, one of my seniors started an organization called Nirman, which is headquartered in Hyderabad. And I'm on their advisory board now, but that's because I've been part of the whole initiative for more than 15 years. I've been a volunteer with them ever since 2005 when we were on campus, and they were my seniors. The interesting part is that now more and more young people are looking towards social development, but also not in the nonprofit space, more in the how we can build sustainably, green homes for people. How can we essentially move beyond the charity and philanthropy model to make it something that's more sustainable, right? And so that's skills, livelihood, and education and things like that. It's very exciting. But going back to my journey, especially in Pilani, I think I felt very deeply about the social causes. But it wasn't until like when I was in my final year, I saw Al Gore's movie, An Inconvenient Truth, which came out. And it talked about climate. He even won the Nobel Prize after that for making that movie and essentially raising awarenesses on how we have essentially, the Industrial Revolution as such has, created these carbon emissions in the atmosphere, and which is driving global warming, or what you want to call climate change. Like my friend who came to watch, it was actually screened in our college, and my friend who came to watch with me, he said, "Oh my God, this is too boring, I'm leaving." So I ended up sitting and watching the entire movie alone with like my heart in my hand and thinking, "Oh my God,
So much is happening.
so much is happening on the planet and we're not doing anything about it." And so I went back home and I did so much research, so much homework on what is climate change, why is it happening. I read a book called Freakonomics, and then in the book also it says, what is talks about what is common between Al Gore and this particular volcano in the Philippines called Mount Pinatubo. Funny story, I ended up living in Philippines also later. But that movie really made me understand what is happening. And I think it also said that, there will be so many climate refugees, and climate will drive food security issues. It will cause land security issues. It's going to cause sea level rise is just one small piece of the picture. Like it's much, much bigger. Our economy.
And all of it is actually happening also, right?
It's already happening even earlier than the scientists predicted. There are wildfires everywhere. There's so much, natural, they call it natural disasters, but there is a saying that, there's no natural disaster anymore. Everything is almost man-made. I think it's interesting to say that, like there's a lot of sustainability that can be done on a daily basis by us. But really, the systemic changes can happen when the government and the policymakers can drive it.
Actually, with the process, somewhere it changes.
Exactly.
But tell me, okay, keeping the process, from the government or from an authority or the TSI, what are the small things that somebody can do on a day-to-day basis to actually add up to the sustainability?
And I'll also add a little bit of how they can do it without really putting a hole in their pocket or doing something drastic, right? It starts with a simple thing called an eco audit. Do an eco audit at home.
Okay.
Right? Figure out how much single-use plastic do you have. Again, your toothbrush itself is like a plastic that you've used for like at least, 6 months at least? So take that as one last thing. Go to your daily use. What is the single-use plastic that's coming in your home? Are you bringing in like these small 0.5 micron plastics, which essentially are coming in because you ordered some chart or Swiggy or you ordered something through that, and that's shown up at your door. Start eliminating single use. That's the first step, because single use is the most challenging.
But now if I'm ordering for my food and if it comes how do I eliminate? Do you mean reuse it?
Reuse it as much as you can. Then find out how you can actually get it recycled. So there are, I think, 7 R's. People say just, reduce, reuse, recycle, right? No, the first R is refuse. How can you refuse single-use plastic? How can you say, oh, can I replace it with something else right now? Can I carry my own steel bottle instead of buying a single-use plastic water bottle? Okay, how can you essentially, carry your grocery bag, a cloth bag, instead of that? Also remember, a cloth bag, unless you use it around 200 times, your plastic or paper is still better. You need to understand how much amount of water went into making that bag also, because cotton is very water intensive. So I think you need to start slowly start with single use, see how you can replace it. And then slowly look at what are the other things that I use more often that I can slowly replace without really making a drastic shift. Like, okay, if my plastic toothbrush, I've been using it for 2 months, don't throw it away and use, a new bamboo toothbrush. Finish its life. Similarly, you have like a, Teflon pan or something, right? Don't throw it away today. Use it to end of life and then replace it with a ceramic one, which is better for your health, right? So I think a lot of people just don't realize that, you don't have to make a drastic change. You have to use something to end of life and let it live its purpose. And then you replace it with something that, can be. So when you make a purchase, that time you need to really question is how long I'm going to use it, how much impact it has.
So I think it's more about consciously making a purchase better than discarding things right away.
Absolutely. And also do it over a period of time. I am not a perfect vegan. I'm not a perfect zero waster. And that's because I'm still learning. And, I'm fighting a system. So what I do at work every day is fight the system anyway. And, and on a day-to-day basis, I need to decide what is better for my sanity. Because I don't want to be spending, and making my entire home plastic free. That's going to be very intensive on my pocket and my mind also, right? And then to keep up with it, right? So I think the little baby steps every single day, remove single-use plastic, then go to what you use for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. And then when you're making bigger purchases where you're looking at, I'm going to use this for more than 1 year. So then when you make that new purchase, do that. I think it's just, something that you build is a muscle. Everything is a muscle. So even your sustainable behavior to being a zero waster is a muscle. Look at fashion. I think a lot of times people are like, oh, I have so much this and that in my wardrobe. Now what do I do? Don't discard it. Use it. Use it as long as you can. The most sustainable piece of clothing is the piece of clothing that's already in your wardrobe. As simple as that. So before you buy something new, try to figure out how to
do one thing you all need to take.
So I think like I said, now going back to the fact that, I believe policy is the biggest driver of things. And that is the reason why I started working in that space. I even helped, write CSR policies for some time, because a lot of sustainability was within corporate social responsibility in India. But then eventually, over a period of time, I was able to then make a space where I worked with City of Pittsburgh, where I also did my master's. I helped them write the climate action plan for the city. And then I moved to Asian Development Bank, where then I worked with like Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam governments, to work on renewable energy, energy efficiency, coal phase out. And then eventually came to the UN. And I'll talk a little bit about my roles right now, actually. I work on something called as the Fashion Charter for Climate Action, Fashion Industry Charter for Climate Action, rather. I think a lot of people think when they talk about fashion, it's just about material sustainability and, or like, thrifting and all that, right? What I work on is basically making the manufacturing more green through renewable energy.
It's and everything.
Exactly. So a lot of people don't know, but all your Nike and H&M and Decathlon and all that, none of those are manufactured in the West, right? Even though the brands are headquartered in the West, all the manufacturing, as it says on the labels, made in Cambodia, Vietnam, highest is Bangladesh. And I was in Bangladesh twice this year for work, and China, India as well. And the interesting part is that 70% of a garment's emissions are actually in the manufacturing itself. So we are looking at essentially how that, raw material, cotton or, anything is converted into a yarn. And then that yarn is actually made into a cloth, right? And then really
fashion.
Exactly. A lot of people talk about the water. Yeah. How does the water get boiled for that? It's through energy or electricity rather. So renewable energy is the biggest kind of, element that can really green your fashion garment. And that's where I'm working, essentially creating, opportunities for the private sector, which is the brands, manufacturers, retailers, to be able to talk to governments in the markets, which is Bangladesh, Vietnam, China, to be able to have conversations on how we can green the manufacturing itself. And that is through renewable energy and essentially getting coal out of the system.
Yeah. But thanks for actually, sensitizing us and kind of bringing all of these things into the discussion. What I wanted to ask here is, now I hear a lot about vegan clothing. I hear about vegan accessories, vegan footwear, vegan handbags, and all of this. Now, to manufacture all these, though it is a vegan product as such, how is the process of making it?
So, a lot of people don't realize this, but there is a difference between what is called vegan and what is cruelty-free. So, vegan is something that is essentially like, does not contain animal products or anything associated that the raw material coming from animals. Whereas cruelty-free is where you have not tested on animals. So, clothes have not necessarily been tested on animals. I doubt it.
Oh, that's why they call it vegan clothing? No, because I am talking about clothes made of bamboo clothes.
Yes, exactly. They're all plant-based. Yeah. So they've always been that way. Cotton and everything. Hemp, linen, all these.
My question is, how are the manufacturing units of these done?
The manufacturing is same. A lot of time, the manufacturing is same because the processes are very similar.
Yeah.
So I personally think the only, like the non-vegan products we had in India predominantly is silk, right? So silk was really one of the biggest kinds of products that comes from the piece, as a silk piece, right? So I think essentially most of our clothing was already vegan as such.
Correct.
And again, it goes back to making a statement or trying to adding labels.
To make a statement, if you're doing that.
Yes.
But again, you're still adding on to the
It's also great that it raises awareness. But I think, again, it goes back to someone educating themselves and say, what is different from this? Correct. Is it actually reducing emissions? So look at what was the source. If it was made in like a small manufacturing unit close by to your home and it did not travel too far, then it's absolutely sustainable. But if it's a linen dress which was made in Cambodia and brought to India, then you're probably not being
still adding on to it.
You're still adding lots of emissions because it was probably manufactured in Cambodia in a huge unit where thousands of clothes are manufactured every single day. So they're using a lot of heat, a lot of, electricity. They're also kind of, probably not paying good, fair wages to their, garment workers. So question that. And I think, and there's also a myth that I'd like to clear. Fast fashion is trying very hard to, say that they're not greenwashing. There is still greenwashing happening, but I feel very confident after working with multiple brands that, I think they're trying very hard. In 5 years, we'll get there. Yeah.
That's nice. Now, when you're working on all of these things at a global level, how do you rate or, how do you think India is doing in this space?
One of the best things that has come out of India more recently is like the life principles, which have been launched by the central government, or Narendra Modi himself announced the life principles at one of the COP I believe it was last year in Egypt. And essentially, it's basically lifestyle sustainable practices, lifestyle and for environment. And I think more than anything, our culture already had a lot of behavior where we live with nature as compared to the Western culture.
Because personally, what I understand, what I feel is we were actually living like this, but we were taught the Western way.
Correct.
And now we are again, trying to go back, which is again coming from the West.
Exactly. Again,
Because
because I think the joke is that now when you live in America, your yoga teacher is white.
Yes.
Who went and studied in India and came back, right?
Because when I went off to study yoga also, I studied with a bunch of the US, and they were from all over the world.
Yeah.
And I think I was the only Indian in that.
Yeah.
And these were at teacher levels. So what I see is, organic foods.
Organic.
The sustainable clothing and this yoga, all these things. And now we are again learning it from the West.
That is correct. And that is where I think where the life principles that have been set by the government are not just for us, but also the world to learn. And I think we all need to go back to the fact that, Indians were already doing so many sustainable practices. I don't think we need to learn from them anymore. Look up the life principles. If you just Google it, it shows up. It's worked with the UN and multiple other agencies in India. And those are the best thing that has come.
No, they are
leading the way.
I was actually, I think, in Shark Tank or something, somewhere in one of the country editions. I was seeing that they were making things out of this banana things, and it was such a concept for them.
Yeah,
I was like, how long we've been using it,
Exactly.
But now again, if it becomes a hit there, then I think the West knows how to market it. And maybe the cool factor that they add to it is what is missing here. And I think if we can bring that in, there's no place better than India or, Indians, the Indian way of doing things actually. For how long have we been using steel vessels and, aluminum vessels and copper vessels and everything? So I think going back to our own roots.
Exactly. And going back to the fact that Indians were always about peace and compassion.
Yeah.
So if you can ask somebody to bring their own plate to the next event, but doing it with love, then you are the best sustainable champion ever.
Divya, one thing which I wanted to ask you was, as much as life goes as a plan, because as you said, things were manifesting and everything. Now tell me, was it your plan actually to be a globetrotter, or, did you start off to do something like this, or did it happen in the process?
I think it's more that my passion and my purpose, gave me opportunities. It was never like a bucket list thing for me to say that, by age of 23, I should be, like in Antarctica and, actually finishing or touching all 7 continents by the age of 27. Never the plan, never like, something I have to do because, time is running out or whatever. But more of like, okay, where can I contribute?
No, I'll tell you why I'm asking this. Because when somebody introduced me to you last time in one of those events, the first thing that they told me was, do you know she's lived across all the continents? Okay. Because what I see is, it's much more than that. But what people see is maybe, what is seen on the outside. But then you don't start off wanting to live all over the world. Your work has taken you everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. A lot of people be like, are you a traveler? And I say, no, I'm not a traveler, but
Travel for work.
I travel where the universe wants to take me. And, like when you are driven by a sense of purpose, you will be amazed at how opportunities open up for you, how people open up to you. And, the way that, I have learned from different cultures and, just traveling and being in different places. And, I have found that especially when you travel, you realize your oneness with the world a lot more. There's oneness when you're with nature, but also oneness when you're with people. And I think that drives me. So maybe
when you experience that, you are a part of the world.
Exactly. So
That is why, there are opportunities which open up as well.
absolutely. I think if you stay authentic to your purpose, the universe will take you where you truly are needed in that moment. So just
On that note, really, I think, you're talking my language. Usually what I tell people, it's more about not forcing anything, just get into the flow where you just are, where you understand the aspect of just being.
Yeah.
I think things will just flow.
Yeah, absolutely. And acceptance. Saying that, oh, this is interesting. So let's explore more.
Yeah.
And then you never know which door opens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because when you're in that state of acceptance, you're aware. You see.
Correct.
Because if you are set on something, you'll only keep searching for it.
Absolutely.
Might or might not be there. But in that process, maybe we are missing out on so much more.
And then again, of course, the whole point of, connecting the dots in retrospect, you needed to be there in that moment. If I didn't watch the Al Gore movie when I was in college, maybe I wouldn't work in climate change.
Yeah.
That led me to go to Antarctica at 23. And then it took me at age 30, I was sharing stage with Al Gore in Pittsburgh, of all places. And, who would do the largest climate conference in Pittsburgh but Al Gore, literally when I'm living there. And so when he called me on stage and he asked me, tell me about yourself, tell me your journey. And I said, it was you. It started with you. It was you. And he was like taken aback. Imagine meeting your heroes and being able to say that, hey, it's because of you I've made it so far. And I
know you because you've been open.
Absolutely. And
Open, and you kind of, you embraced all that came across.
Yeah, and it's the same with, like a lot of people ask, how is it working with Robert Swan, who's like a polar explorer. He's the first person in the world to, walk to both North Pole and South Pole. And he's achieved so much in his life. He's one of the most biggest environmentalists on the planet. And I say, you talk to him and you realize, he lives every minute with passion. And if I could live even 1% of that, I would think that, he's been to Antarctica 20, 30 times, and he's one of the only people in the world to have done the trans-Antarctic journey. So, the universe will give you, ways and opportunities to be able to inspire people, inspire yourself to inspire others.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Divya, for coming, for, giving us this opportunity to understand things at a deeper level. Thank you.
Thank you.